All right, everyone, welcome to the first podcast of The Other Side. We wanted to record this podcast as an explanation video for why David and I are starting this, why we're doing this, why our producer in the back, Shagun, has been spending the past 8 weeks of her summer filming and recording us. So this is just an explanation podcast for why we're actually doing this, what the motivation behind this is, and what the long-term vision for this is within the next couple months and then couple years. So I'm Amit. That is David.
Yep.
We have Shagun in the back. Now, you might be wondering why we're wearing this. Well, mainly it's to get your attention because it's probably better than wearing a regular shirt. And that's what we're doing with this podcast. We are trying to captivate the masses' attention, something that is such a difficult thing to do.
The masses.
Because getting the masses, what did Marx say? He said religion is the opioid of the masses, right? Like when you get something that can get the attention of people, whether it's religion, a podcast, music, a show, you have opportunity that opens up for you, whether that's financial or whether that's something else. And this all started back in June when I was listening to a podcast on a guy who started a podcast company. And he was walking through his steps and his procedures in terms of how he built a platform that was built on audio storytelling. And in that moment, I got really kind of inspired to be like, I kind of want to start a podcast. And I tried starting some podcasts before, but they didn't have any variables that differentiated them from other podcasts, right? They were just basic interview podcasts. So I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something unique. And then I realized that one of the things I love to do is debate. And I love to talk about things. And I love to competitively argue against other people. So I started thinking about if I were to do a podcast where I debate about topics and issues, who could I ask to be on it with me? So David, I've known since about 2014. We went to high school together. I just graduated college. He's in his final couple years of college. And I saw a video of David debating on the internet the other day, or this was back in June. And David was one of the most passionate people in the debate that I saw him debating in. And it sort of reminded me of my passion and my energy for a debate that really had no end result, right? He was just debating for the video. It's not like he was getting paid for it or anything like that. So to be so energetic and passionate to win the argument and to convince the other person of your side was something that really motivated me to ask David to do this endeavor with me. And now we're here.
Yeah, it's been a really, really interesting couple of weeks. At first, I was like, this is an interesting idea, but I'm not sure where it'll go. I'm not sure where it'll look
talk to them about the pitch. So I brought you to my house.
Yeah.
And then what did I say that sort of got you to be like, all right, I'm going to dedicate the next 2 months of my life and probably 2 years to this project?
So the interesting thing was, so we had talked about it for a little bit, spun the idea in terms of in terms of the mission. So part of what makes this a unique opportunity for all of us is that there are very, very limited opportunities outside of competitive formats for people to have kind of structured conversations about things that matter to them, right? The closest we get to a structured debate outside of an activity is like the presidential debates, which are, for lack of a better word, not very structured. So the idea of being able to engage in a form of like conversation that was competitive and also like structured about random topics to me was really interesting. The pitch and the part of it that made me really, really interested was the idea of not being ideologically tied to a side. So the one thing that Amit emphasized about the project that I thought was really cool was that we'd be taking different sides and different perspectives on different issues. So one debate might see me defending a more libertarian position, while another one might see me defending the opposite, right? And I thought that aspect was extremely like captivating in terms of just getting me sold on like this is something that could be good. I had other external reasons for why I wanted to do it. So, for example, I have like a civic discourse project that I had to do, and I was like, I think this might be an interesting experiment in that, and I like might submit this as that project. But the part of the pitch that made me like actually want to do this and be like, I am willing to commit time and energy to this wasn't a description of it. It wasn't a description of what we could gain out of it. It was a question. Amit kept asking the question, are you sure? Right? Every single time. I was like, I think this is something I would want to do. He asked, are you sure? I was like, I think this could be a ton of work, but it could be really good. He was like, are you sure? And he sent me home with one thing to do, which was think long and hard about this. And unlike a lot of other people who might have just been like, jump in immediately, let's figure this out, the fact that Amit asked me that question, are you sure, and told me to go and think about it, made me realize that there had already been a ton of thought into this project, right? And that part of the entire thing made me really believe that this was something worth pursuing, that someone had already put mental energy into it before we had gotten a second of footage out. And I was in.
Yeah, and that's what The Other Side is. The Other Side is a competitive debate podcast where we take random topics, funny topics, social topics, economic topics, political topics, and debate over them in a structured format that's not just yelling over each other, but actually as a speech, actually has time for questions, actually has a rebuttal, so forth and so forth. I got the idea in about June. I thought about it for a good 2-3 weeks, and then I pitched it to David. And you know, when I said getting people's attention is a very hard thing to do, it is because in the age that we live in, particularly with social media, there is so much content everywhere. And I am someone who wants to pursue a career as a content creator. And I think if you're trying to pursue a career as a content creator, you have to figure out what things can you do currently before you transition into any other type of content that is in your niche and you are excellent at, that gives you the best opportunity to grab someone's attention. And David and I are national champions in competitive debate. And a lot of people may not know what competitive debate is. Basically, it's going across the country to random tournaments or even outside of the country and literally debating other people over topics. Should we pass a living wage? Is Disney good for cultural norms? Anything you could think of. And it's about convincing the person in the back of the room, the judge, to believe in the idea that you have said from a philosophical perspective, from a technical perspective, and get them to ultimately vote for you. So that sounded really cool if we could do that into a podcast. I am done with debate. I stopped debating 4 years ago, and I've only been coaching it. David is in his final year of debating in college in his form of debate, which is policy debate. And we're about to be done debating. And the thing I noticed that really sucked about debating is that when it ends, you're left with this kind of void, right? Because you spent so many years trying to come up with arguments and unique and creative ways to convince other people on your side of the topic, whether you were on the affirmative or the negative. And when that ends, for every debater who's had a decently competitive career, they feel kind of sad about it. And I was like, I don't think it needs to end because we're going to be debating for the rest of our lives. But the only way to sustain that is to create a project or a model through the mechanisms of distribution that exists today, which is content and social media, to actually get people to care about how we debate about things. And David is one of the most smartest people on any topic you could give him, whether he knows about it or not. He has what I think I have, which is the ability to win the argument regardless. So you will find some logical explanation for whatever thing you believe in, even if it doesn't make sense, and you will make other people think it makes sense.
I'm also very good at lying. So
he's also very good at lying and manipulating people and making it seem like he's not manipulating, especially in the debates that you guys will see as well. He twists my words.
Manipulation's a strong word.
He manipulates my words very well.
Hey, what can I say? It's I think our first coach in debate told us that the most powerful thing he was going to the most powerful thing we would get out of debate was being able to trick people.
Right.
And he was like, you can't use this for evil. And I'd say I've done a pretty good job not using it for evil.
Yeah, it's the art of rhetoric, and we've used the art of persuasion, rhetoric, and communication to advance opportunities for us in our own lives. And when I asked David to do this, again, the question was, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you? And the reason for that is because when you commit to doing something, and I've had moments in my life, David probably has as well, where you've said in your head you're going to commit to it, but then you don't actually execute, and I think that is the worst feeling in the world. Because
workouts.
You set, like working out, exercise, because you set a burden for yourself, and in your head, you're already in that world. But to get there, you actually have to do some stuff. So I got this idea in June, and I was like, all right, we're going to launch in September, because I want to have a good 3 months of actually just putting in the work, getting something built, and then we're going to focus on distribution. But I needed to make sure that he was ready to spend all of his summer doing this. I had to make sure I was ready to spend all of my summer doing this. And ultimately, we ended up doing it.
Yeah, and I'm super, super happy. I think, for me, one of the things that was also externally really interesting about this is... the relationship that I have with Amit has run pretty deep. Like you said, we met each other in 2014. And Amit was my captain in high school when it came to debate. I remember the first time I met Amit, he was very bad at this, at the whole debate thing. Like, really,
good.
I remember as a freshman, I was like, I can hang with this guy. He was the only person that made me feel great about myself. Yeah, keep that broken smile on your face. I appreciate it. But then seeing him grow, and just from the level where it was like, I think I can beat this guy for the rest of my career, to this guy is one of the best people I've ever seen in debate. Like, that made me just think that this would be a really good opportunity to test myself, right? Like, I always want to engage in debate, and I think that he is a great sparring partner for that. But because he was my captain, there were times where I was also very annoyed at him. For a long period of time, I was like, I don't like this guy. I was like, I don't like that he's better than me. I don't like this guy. So when he brought this opportunity to me, I was like, wait, so you're telling me that for the next 3 months, I will get the opportunity to say that you're wrong about everything? I will get an hour a week to say that you are completely wrong about anything that you've put your hard, like, energy and time into researching. I will get to trash all of your stuff.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
I'm in. And because I started that, I also can't turn it off. So I'd like to point out some things that you were wrong about in the last 11 minutes and 33 seconds. It is not religion is the opioid of the masses. Religion is the opiate of the masses. And I'm not.
What is the difference between opioid and opiate?
One is
One is what?
One is an actual drug. The opioid is the actual drug. Opiate is a term for anything that produces intoxication. And more importantly, it's a quote. Yes, this is what I do, people. I read. The second thing is, I am not the most smartest person you've ever seen. I'm just the smartest person you've ever seen. I take pleasure.
Only David can take a compliment and just turn it.
I take pleasure in doing this. Okay, that's it. Keep going.
No. And the thing is, you know, when you're trying to create something big, you have to have chemistry with a person. I mean, me and David weren't even friends. Forget best friends over the past couple of years. But when you're trying to pursue something, you got to find someone who can match the energy, who you think can actually be. And the thing about David is, in high school, he was actually very lazy, right? And not committed to a lot of things he did, whether it was debate. And he didn't really do that well in debate in high school, but in college, he turned into like a national superstar because he just got more dedicated. And when I saw him win the national championship in California in January of 2020, which is one of the hardest tournaments to win, him and his partner were number one out of like, 200-300 people. That's when I realized this guy is different than what he was in high school. He is willing to put in the work. He is good, because you can't just put in the work and then not win. Like, he wins because he's good. And he cares about this. So this was a new challenge to be like, all right, now we're going to use the structure of social media, take the chemistry that I know we can develop, and it took some time to develop it, take our intellectual capacity to make arguments and apply it to unique topics, and then see if we can technically produce a show with all the camera and the lighting problems and microphone problems that we've had and editing problems. Like, we've been through a lot over the past 2 months. And see if we can get, like, all of this was to see if we could get your attention. And your attention is the only thing that matters going into the future. Like, no matter what degrees we have, the only thing that matters is in the future, can David and I, to make ourselves more marketable, can anyone get someone's attention and then potentially monetize that or use that for opportunities in the future?
So what makes you guys different?
I think exactly what David said. And this is what I was just about to get to. Because we want your attention, we don't want your attention to be ideologically or dogmatically tied to anything we say. So one debate, David will be arguing for universal basic incomes. The next debate, he'll say universal healthcare is stupid. One debate will be saying that
social programs rock. The next debate, I'll say that social programs suck. Some debates will make claims about why we need to help people that work really, really tough jobs. Another debate will say that all the people that work tough jobs are losers. There are so many things that change, and people, like, I think that it's weird that people have an individual image of who they are, and that you don't have to think about your position on things. Like, you don't have to think about the way that your position on things change, or that you can't have different positions that aren't ideologically tied. I think that that's probably not great for, like, discourse. It's not great for the world. And I think that being able to break out of that mold and just talk and explore what other people think, explore the other side of issues is really important. I know for me, this has been a really, really like long personal journey in terms of being able to grow through this. Like Amit said, I was not a phenomenal student. At one point, I was such a bad student, I almost got kicked out of the United States. That's a story for another day.
His family was about to send him back to where he came from.
That was such a bad day, but that was such a good pizza that day.
Yeah, so David, because he was almost getting kicked back, he bought us all pizza as like his final goodbye. And I was like, well, at least
I really thought I was out of the country. Like we had tickets planned and everything. So like
he's been through a journey.
Yeah, the thing that kept me like here and kept me thinking was, like there were a lot of like cool interests that I was developing in terms of being able to talk about things, in terms of being able to debate, and I was like, this is worth making the changes that are necessary to like actually do something, right? And I think that that's the thing that makes, aside from just the format of this being different, I think the thing that makes this different is us. The fact that that it has taken so much to create this. This is not a journey, like Amit makes it seem like it's a journey that began in June. The conversation about how to do this began in June. The journey began
6-7 years ago. The journey began when we were 13, 14, 15 years old, learning how to communicate. One of the things that very few people in the world know how to do, and all of us have to communicate, but very few people can actually get their thoughts across in a way, and I think this is the thesis of effective communication, that gets someone else to care about them. And David and I have been on this journey for the past 6 years, and I think we're rock stars. Like, I think we are rock stars in our own extent because we know how to take any topic and make it fun. Give us an hour to do some research. Give us 5 minutes to think of arguments, and we're going to keep it going. And I think that's what's going to make this format different. And I think there's two problems that are existential in our world right now. One is the nature of discourse and polarization in America. People can't talk to each other. And two is this weird thing about canceling people. I think this podcast solves both of those things. I don't think we're going to solve all of polarization, because if you just believe in one thing, maybe you're never going to come to the other side. But if there is something that has another side, a universal basic income, is binging content on Netflix good or beneficial for you? Like, there are different ways to approach these topics. And being able to see the other side and understand the other side's perspective and know what the arguments are so you can beat them or be influenced by them is important. And second of all is this weird thing about cancel culture. This idea that if I say a UBI is good one day, and then if I disagree with myself the next day, I am now against the ideological lines of the party that I'm supposed to be with, so now I'm canceled by that party. Like, I think it is the most ridiculous thing ever. I think humans are the most intricate, complex creatures in the world. And yes, when humans say some crazy, egregious things, I do think that the mob of the world deserves to come after them. But that's not every single thing that it exists in our society right now.
One thing that exactly what you said that I noticed you guys have done so well is that you are giving the people what they want. Because people
got to give the people.
No, don't sing. Don't sing. We are losing viewers with every note. Do not sing.
People want to be able to have conversations.
People want to see the other side.
They want to be able to see the other side, but they're not able to do so because of the figures that they see on TV and media. So, for example, yesterday when you guys had this healthcare debate, previously I was so like, universal healthcare is a right, really emotional about it. And then as I did research and as I saw David sort of talk about some of the logical concerns with it, I realized like, oh wait, how are we going to pay for it? So I started really thinking and digging deep into it. However, I listened because it was David. Would I have listened if I'm just like turning on Fox News, for example, because I'm so ideologically tied to one belief? And I think that's what the people want. They want to hear logical, respectful arguments.
Oh, no.
That's all they want to hear.
No, at some point in time, I'm gonna be disrespectful.
Yes, and
I'm
so
gonna hate you.
They will always be logical, but the reason sometimes they might get disrespectful is because that's the beauty of the show. There is a structured competitive incentive because you, the viewers, are gonna vote in the comments for who won the debate.
Me.
So not David barely wins any debates. So that means that we're gonna get sassy sometimes. We're gonna get emotional, but the logic will never the emotion will never over-determine the logical ability for us to make the argument, which is what gives us our rock star ability, but also gives us our ability to entertain. And I don't think we're solving cancel culture. I don't think we're solving polarization in a vacuum. I do think there needs to be media outlets that exist that can talk about different things that aren't ideologically aligned. But ultimately, we're here to entertain. Like, this is a good time for us. And eventually, we're going to transition into just talking about anything and not having structured debates early on or later down the line of the journey of this podcast. But the goal is, like, can we take a topic, have an affirmative and negative side, and entertain the viewers by informing you on the coolest arguments for and against them, and having a unique discussion that is actually entertaining enough for you to care about the arguments we're making.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing here is there are so many things that you can watch at any point in time, but if you go through your like YouTube subscription list or like your history, the odds that you will care about anything you have watched down the line are pretty low.
It's a very good point.
The hope here is that we can talk about things that are valuable enough that you will care, and that you will eventually talk about them for more than a day around the cooler at work.
Right, and that goes down to, I think, the final thing we're going to touch on, which is what is the impact to you listening to this podcast, right? Like, what do you get out of this outside of being entertained? Because we hope that's something that's intrinsically going to be a part of your viewing or listening experience. I think it's the ability to better understand how to think about a topic, construct an argument for or against that topic, and then the crux of what we do is defend it against opposition. Very few people in the world can have a thought, articulate that thought, and then defend it when someone contests their thought. So our hope is through the structure of our podcast where we actually are our own commentators. We're literally taking a break from the debate during the debate and commentating on the process of argumentation that we're deploying. We hope that you can take away skills from that to then go out and be a better communicator. And the impact of being a better communicator is tenfold. You can go on that first date and actually have a conversation. You can go at an interview and present yourself more effectively. You can win more conversations with friends. That's important to be able to do. And you can be more persuasive at the end of the day if you know how to communicate. And hopefully we can help you do that.
There is somebody very particular that I would like to address this to. If you have ever found yourself having a Facebook argument and then ending the Facebook argument with cool, or just dipping on the argument because you had nothing else to say or you were too afraid to say something, I would like you to spend time watching this.
And you're a coward, like straight up, because you don't engage in the conversation.
I'm kidding. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with what I'm because when you engage in an argument, and this is for everything, right? Forget Facebook. If you engage and present your side, and then when someone presents a counter argument, and you're like, oh, I don't have a response, and you're like, cool, or I'm a dip, you're a coward. Like, at the end of the day, you are a coward. Don't engage in something where you're not ready to accept the defeat, or you're not ready to fight until you win. Do not go in and just be like, cool, and try to end it as if you're better.
I'd rather you fight till you win. The point of this is that hopefully you can learn enough to fight till you win.
Right.
Like, it's the reason people dip on conversations, or the reason why polarized conversation in America is so ineffective, is because no one has the tools necessary to be able to do it, because we spend all our time watching makeup tutorials and like random reactions.
And that's fine if you do, but at the end of the day, if you're not going to be a model, like you got to consume content that's I think that's what we see in the podcast and people are listening to a little bit less music because they want to be more personally developed, right? So they spend an hour listening to a podcast. Our argument here is that if you listen to us, we think you will be more developed as a communicator.
And back to what you were saying, I don't know if you're necessarily a coward. I mean, maybe in some
I think you are. I think you absolutely are.
And this is why there's another side.
Right. I don't think, in some instances, maybe there might be people who are cowards. I think it's more so maybe you just don't know how to engage.
No,
maybe
no.
know how to create an argument.
Well, here we go.
Well, but this is the problem. When you decide to engage and you don't know how to continue, you shouldn't have engaged in the first place. Because you knew that someone's going to... What, you thought someone was just going to let you comment and not have a good response against you?
That's the point. Also, everyone wants to. This is the difference. Everyone wants to engage.
Exactly.
Right? If you twiddled your thumbs to make that first comment, you wanted the smoke.
Yep, you wanted the fade.
The question is, do you have what it takes to keep it going?
You wanted to catch the fade, but I already went to my barber. So the idea is
no, sweetheart, no.
like I think that when you listen to this podcast, you'll be able to better create an argument. And in like a little Twitter debate or whatever, that's useful, but we're talking about in your life. Like when you want to start a movement, when you want to build a company, like me and David are in the process of doing our own things outside of this podcast. All of that requires us being able to make convincing arguments and sell it to the people whose attention we need, whether it's an employer or whether it's a venture capitalist. And that requires good communication skills.
And you know what it'll also teach you? Even it will teach you how to defend your argument, but it'll also teach you that sometimes if you want to go to the other side, if you want to dip into the other side and you want to believe one thing that they're saying, that
and you
you're
shouldn't
like,
be
wow,
afraid to do that.
That's really persuasive. You should give yourself the liberty to be like, oh, they made a really good argument. Let me explore that a little bit. Let me do my own research. And if I end up believing in that, there's no shame in going to that side.
Yep. This is about looking towards the other side of things and then coming to your own opinion, right? And I think there's very few people in media who are able to do that. And again, me and David are not political pundits. We just like to take we've debated things like, is jealousy a good emotion for you versus does money buy happiness versus should we be pessimistic or optimistic towards democracy? Should we get rid of standardized tests? Like, these are the types of things we've touched upon. And I think we've had really good, engaging discussions that literally you will see throughout the course of the podcast that you watch or listen to. Me and David have literally said what our beliefs were and how they've changed. Like, when it came to the money happiness debate, we both had to do a lot of soul searching on, like, does money really buy happiness? Or can I even be happy if I'm broke or if I'm not making a certain amount? Like, these are things that we've been able to discover that we hope you'll be able to take away from our journey as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
I am just super proud of, like, what this has come to.
That's the final thing. We'll end up, we're about 27 minutes. I just want to say to you, David, I'm super proud that you like stayed committed over these 2 months and bought into the vision, because it's very hard to get people to buy into the vision, but you bought into it. And then but within the first week, David was already helping me craft the idea. So this truly became collective within a week of us starting it, because like we both started bouncing off ideas off this. And then I want to thank our producer in the back, Shagun. She's also my big sister, who also really enhanced my vision for what this could be in terms of it being a platform for it not to be ideological and dogmatic. That was kind of her perspective.
And as a master researcher.
She does a lot of research for the topics that we debate as well. So, yeah, I'm proud of both of you. And I'm proud of all three of us because...
I'm so proud of you. Look at you doing things with your life.
Trying to do things with our lives, with my life, because it doesn't matter if I don't get your attention. And we're going to spend a lot of time trying to get your attention because I value your attention. And we're trying to develop a product in which your attention is worth spending its time on, just like a song is worth listening for its time. So we spent the past 2 months of the summer when we could have been doing anything else, cooped up in this basement, trying to literally be those kids that made it from the basement. So... I think that's what we'll call this podcast, The Kids from the Basement.
LOL. Yeah. I mean, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate your time, like Amit said. And we now return you to your regularly scheduled makeup tutorial.
Catch you on the other side.
Catch you on the other side.
Oh, God.